Not every family feels like home. Sometimes it's the place where the deepest silences live, where smiles are practiced, and love is something you are expected to earn. Ka was only 7 the first time she met her grandfather. It was Christmas. She brought drawings, small gifts, a heart wide open. But when she opened the box they gave her and found nothing inside, something in the room broke. And what this little girl did next changed a man no one thought could be changed. Because sometimes the bravest person in the room is the one with the smallest voice. No one in the room that day would ever forget the sound of the wrapping paper being torn. It was the only sound, no music, no laughter, just the soft, careful rustle as little Ka unwrapped her gift, her tiny fingers peeling back the edges like she was uncovering something sacred. And for a moment she smiled, that quiet, hopeful kind of smile only children still believing in magic know how to wear. Then she opened the box. Her expression shifted instantly. First came confusion, then something heavier, something that looked an awful lot like hurt. Her small shoulders stiffened as she looked up at her mother. The box was empty. Her mother saw it before Ka could even speak. Just bare cardboard. No tissue, no toy, not even a note. Nothing. She blinked, trying to make sense of it. Was it a mistake? Did something fall out? Did someone forget? Before she could voice any of it, she heard him. Frank, her father. A laugh burst from him, sharp and cold, like winter wind slipping through a crack in the wall. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Kids like her shouldn't expect anything. The world's already full of freeloaders. Her stomach dropped. Ka stood frozen, her little hands still resting inside the box like she hadn't quite given up. Like maybe if she looked hard enough, something would still be there. But there was nothing. Heat climbed in her mother's chest. Her hands trembled on her lap. She wanted to speak, anything to break the silence. But the words lodged in her throat like shards. Then Sandra, her sister, snorted, bitter and sharp. Just like her mom, always expecting handouts, useless. Her mother's jaw tightened. Her eyes stung, but she forced herself to look at Ka. The girl didn't cry. Her lips pressed into a thin line, her chin beginning to tremble. That quiet signal mothers always recognize. Her wide eyes glistened with unshed tears. She looked up, not to be held, not to be comforted, but simply to ask, "Am I supposed to pretend this doesn't hurt, Mom?" And something inside her, mother broke. She hated herself for bringing Ka here. Hated that she had let herself believe this year might be different. That her father had changed. That someone, anyone, might see Ka for who she really was. Radiant, kind, endlessly creative. But no one saw her. To them, Ka was a ghost of the past, a leftover from a broken marriage, a living reminder of everything they believed she had ruined. The room fell silent again. Only the hum of the heater and the steady ticking of the grandfather clock behind Frank's chair filled the space. Each tick landed like a warning, counting down to something no one was prepared for. Ka looked down at the empty box. Her fingers traced the edge, then gently folded the flaps closed. Her hands were trembling now. Then, barely above a whisper, she said, "I got you a gift too, Grandpa." The air shifted. Everyone turned. Frank looked up, still wearing that smug little smirk. "Oh yeah," he said, dry. "This should be good." But Ka didn't flinch. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small piece of folded paper. So precise, so careful. It made her mother's chest ache. The girl stepped forward and held it out with both hands, like it was something sacred. And in that moment, her mother knew this wasn't over. Something was about to happen, something none of them saw coming. She hadn't come home for Christmas in over 2 years, not since the divorce, not since the shame, not since the last pieces of her carefully built life had shattered. It was Ka who asked, 3 weeks before the holiday, "Mom, do I have a grandpa?" It wasn't about bloodlines. It was a way of asking why every Christmas felt like something was missing. No matching pajamas, no big tree, no cousins laughing in the next room. Just the two of them, always. And she had said yes. When Ka asked if they could visit this year, she said yes again, even as every instinct inside her whispered no. She didn't know what she was hoping for. Maybe she thought time had dulled their cruelty. That if they saw Ka, even for a moment, they'd feel something: warmth, regret, maybe even love. But the second their car turned into that familiar driveway, that old feeling wrapped tight around her chest, sharp, suffocating, the pressure of smiling for people who didn't want you there. The house was exactly the same: spotless, cold, less like a home and more like a museum, perfect but untouchable. Her mother greeted them with a rehearsed kind of politeness, a hug that felt like obligation, a pat on Ka's head that barely landed. Her gaze lingered on the girl's worn boots, silent judgment behind polished eyes. Sandra didn't even look up from her phone. "Hey," she muttered, already scrolling again. And Frank, her father. He sat by the fire, glass of whiskey in one hand, remote in the other. He didn't stand. He just nodded and muttered, "Didn't think you'd actually show up." That was his welcome. Ka gave him a shy wave, mittened fingers poking from her gloves. "Hi, Grandpa," she said softly, like she was trying the word out for the first time. He grunted. She didn't know why she still hoped for more. Maybe because Ka had worked so hard. She'd drawn pictures for everyone, carefully colored, folded, and tucked into handmade envelopes. She even asked how to spell "to my Aunt Sandra," wanting it perfect. She worked on them every night for a week. Her mother had wanted the visit to mean something, for Ka to feel like she had a family, even if imperfect. She'd scraped together enough from tips and extra shifts for one nice outfit, one small gift, and just enough gas. That morning, while tying Ka's scarf, the girl had asked, "Do you think they'll like my drawings?" She had smiled and said, "Sweetheart, they're going to love them." But deep down, she knew better. She was bringing Ka into a house where kindness was currency and affection came with fine print, where everything, love, warmth, even attention, had a cost. Still, she tried, told herself this was for Ka. She could make it through one day, smile, be pleasant, pretend. But when she watched Ka's little heart quietly break over an empty box, she knew the truth. They hadn't changed. And maybe they never would. Ka had handed out her envelopes like they were gifts of gold. Soft steps, careful hands, each name written with love. To her grandmother, to Sandra, even to Uncle Matt, silent as ever. Then she reached Frank. She paused. Her mother held her breath. Ka hesitated for a second, then smiled and held up the envelope. "Merry Christmas, Grandpa." He didn't look up, just extended his hand like he was accepting a bill. No interest, no glance, no recognition. Ka sat back down next to her mother, her expression still glowing with hope. She didn't realize how cold the room had become. Then Frank reached beneath the tree, pulled out a silver-wrapped box with a red bow. Too neat, too deliberate. He grunted and handed it to Ka. Her eyes lit up. "For me?" she asked. He shrugged. "Says your name on it, doesn't it?" Ka looked to her mother for permission. Her mother nodded, though something in her gut tightened like a warning. Ka lowered herself to the floor, placed the box on her lap like it was made of glass. Her hands reverently touched the wrapping, unpeeling it slowly, carefully, like the moment itself was a gift. Then she lifted the lid, and everything changed. Her mother saw the moment it hit her. Ka's face didn't crumple. Not at first. Her brows knit. She looked inside again, reached down as if something might be hiding at the bottom. But there was nothing. Frank laughed, loud and sharp. "What? Expecting something real?" He scoffed, leaning back. "The world doesn't give out prizes just for showing up, kid." Ka blinked. Her hand stilled. Her mother froze. Sandra couldn't help herself. From her place on the couch, she tossed a verbal dagger. Well, she is just like her mom, always expecting something, not a shock. It hit like a punch. The mother turned, voice firm. "Sandra, don't." Sandra raised an eyebrow, smirked. "What? It's true." Ka now sat perfectly still. The empty box opened in her lap like an accusation, and the mother saw it, that flicker in her daughter's eyes, the realization. She hated them. She hated them for making Ka feel small, for making her question her worth, for treating her heart like a game. She reached toward her daughter, but Ka didn't move, just stared at the box, as if maybe it would still turn into something else. Inside, her mother was screaming, Say something, do something, stand up. But she didn't. Not in front of Ka. She couldn't. Because in families like this, silence becomes armor. You smile through cruelty. You survive by freezing. But Ka, only 7, hadn't learned how to disappear yet. She hadn't learned how to swallow pain. Then she looked up at Frank. Her voice, barely more than a breath, rang through the room like a bell. "It's okay," she said. "I got you a gift too, Grandpa." And the room changed. No one laughed. No one even shifted in their seat. The stillness that followed felt colder than before, as if every word had been vacuumed out of the air. Ka reached into her coat pocket, and her mother could feel it. Something was coming. Something none of them were ready for. She couldn't move, just watched as Ka slowly pulled out a small folded paper. It looked fragile in her hands, like it could be torn in half with a sigh. But Ka held it with purpose, like it meant something. Her mother whispered, "Ka, maybe not now." The girl turned to her, and in her eyes there was no fear, no sadness, only a kind of stillness. Steady, certain. She gave a small nod that said, "I need to do this," then faced Frank again. "I made this for you," she said. Frank didn't lean forward, didn't soften, just glanced at the paper with that bored, guarded look he always wore, like emotion was something beneath him. "Oh yeah," he muttered, sipping his drink. "You draw me a snowman or something." Sarcasm, sharp, practiced, dismissive. But Ka didn't even blink. She crossed the room slowly, her small feet silent against the floor, and held out the paper with both hands. And then her mother saw it. Ka's fingers were trembling. She knew that feeling too well. That moment when bravery feels like standing on a cliff's edge, when your body wants to run, but your heart says stay. Frank took the paper like it was nothing, opened it with one hand, drink still in the other. Then he looked down, and something shifted. Her mother couldn't see the drawing, but she saw his face. No eye roll, no scoff, just a pause, his brow furrowed. He blinked, once, twice. His mouth parted slightly, like he'd forgotten how to breathe. The whole room felt suspended, like time had gone quiet. "What is it?" Sandra snapped, her voice slicing through the stillness. But he didn't answer. He just stared. Ka stood still, hands clasped in front of her now, watching him carefully, like she didn't quite know what came next either. Her mother rose from the couch and walked slowly across the room, afraid to break whatever moment was holding the air together. She stepped beside Ka and gently placed a hand on the girl's back. Ka didn't look at her. She kept her eyes on Frank. And Frank looked older than she had ever seen him, not smug, not angry, just still. He folded the paper slowly, deliberately, almost like it was sacred. Then he set it down on the table beside his chair carefully and stood up. No one knew what to say. No one moved. He walked out of the room without a word. No door slam, no raised voice, just footsteps fading down the hall. That was all they heard. Her mother looked down at Ka. The girl's voice was barely a breath when she asked, "Did I do something wrong?" She knelt beside Ka, wrapped her arms around the girl and whispered, "No, sweetheart, you didn't do anything wrong. You did something brave." Sandra muttered something under her breath, but for once the mother didn't care. Because whatever Ka had drawn, whatever she had written, it had reached Frank in a way none of them ever could. Ka hadn't fought back with anger. She hadn't cried or screamed or run. She had given him a gift, one that reminded him he was still human, even if he had forgotten. And maybe, just maybe, that scared him more than anything else. Frank didn't come back for the rest of the day. He didn't return to the living room, didn't join them for dinner. Not even when the girl's grandmother called out that dessert was ready, using that overly sweet tone she reserved for pretending everything was fine. Ka never mentioned him again that evening. She played quietly with the ribbon from one of her other small gifts and helped her mother fold scraps of wrapping paper like it was any other night. But her mind was elsewhere. Every now and then, her eyes would drift toward the hallway where Frank had disappeared, like she was waiting for something. But nothing happened. Not that day. They left early the next morning. The mother told them they had plans back in the city, but the truth was, she couldn't bear to spend another second pretending. Sandra didn't even get up to say goodbye. Her mother handed her a foil-covered plate of leftover ham and told her to drive safe, no mention of the night before. No one asked how Ka was doing, And somehow that hurt more than anything. The drive home was quiet. Snow blurred past the windows as Ka stared out at the trees. At one point, her mother reached over and held her hand. Ka squeezed back. They didn't talk about the drawing. The mother didn't want to ask, didn't want to unravel something so clearly private. She didn't want to pull apart the fragile magic that had lived inside that moment. But she thought about it the entire way home. What had her daughter drawn? What had she written that made Frank, the same man who once called her weak for crying during a movie, go pale and leave the room without a word? She found out 4 days later. It came in a small, unmarked box left on their porch. No return address, just Ka's name, written in careful block letters across the top. Ka opened it slowly, hesitantly, like she wasn't sure it was safe to hope. Inside was a tiny music box. Old-fashioned, wooden, hand-carved, with little roses painted around the lid. When Ka turned the crank, it played "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." There was a note, just one line, handwritten in a shaky, unfamiliar scrawl. "To the bravest girl I know, thank you for remembering her." No signature, but they didn't need one. Ka clutched the music box to her chest like it was made of gold. She didn't say anything at first. She just held it and smiled. Her mother sat down beside her on the floor and finally asked, "Ka, what did you draw for Grandpa?" Ka looked up. Her voice was soft. It was a picture of him, holding hands with Grandma and me. She paused, then added, "I told him I hope he smiles again one day, because I remember how she made him laugh." Her mother's throat tightened. She couldn't speak. Because that was it. That was the part of Frank she had forgotten even existed. The man who once smiled, once laughed, before grief hardened him, before the years made him cruel. But Ka had seen through all of it. She hadn't offered pity. She hadn't begged for love. She'd given him something else, hope. She didn't try to fix him. She just reminded him of who he used to be, someone worth remembering. And in return, he gave her something too. Maybe not love, maybe not forgiveness, but a beginning. And sometimes, that's enough. The music box now sat on Ka's nightstand. Every night before bed, she wound it. Not always to listen. Sometimes she just held it, to feel the weight of it in her hands, to know it was there, the way a child might hold on to a stuffed animal they've outgrown, but still can't let go of. She hadn't said much about that day since, but every now and then she would mention Grandma, someone she had never met but spoke of like she knew her, like she could feel her in the stories her mother told, in the quiet space she left behind. And maybe somehow she did. Frank never called. He didn't send another message. No apology, no explanation. That wasn't who he was. Maybe it never would be. But a week after the music box arrived, she got a letter. It wasn't addressed to Ka. It was for her. It was short. 3 lines. Written in that same uneven handwriting that she remembered. "I was wrong about you. She's a good kid. Hope you're doing okay." There was no name, but she knew. And for reasons she couldn't quite explain, she cried after reading it. Not because it made everything better. Not because it healed the silence of all those years or erased the way he used to look at her like she was a disappointment wearing a name tag. She cried because for once it felt like he saw her. And more than that, he saw Ka. He saw what she had always known, that the girl was special. That she had this quiet way of peeling back the cold in a room and showing people their own warmth, even when they didn't deserve it. Ka wasn't loud. She didn't ask to be noticed, but she changed things. She changed him. Not completely, but enough. Enough to make a man who'd shut the world out open the door, just a crack. Enough to make someone who believed only in toughness and silence sit down and listen to the music drawn by a little girl's hands. People asked her sometimes why she went back that Christmas, why she let them near her, why she didn't protect Ka better. And the truth was, she thought she had. She thought shielding her daughter from their coldness was enough. That by not speaking of them, not visiting, not engaging, she was keeping her heart safe. But Ka hadn't needed protection. She needed truth. She needed to meet them, to see the world for what it truly was, beautiful and cruel, broken and hopeful, all tangled together. And somehow, instead of getting lost in it, she chose to add her own light. She didn't want revenge. She didn't even need an apology. She just wanted to give a gift. And that gift, as simple as it was, did something her mother hadn't been able to do in 30 years. It opened a door, not wide, not forever, but just enough for a note to get through, enough for a song to play in the quiet, enough for a tired old man to remember a part of himself he thought was gone. That day, Ka reminded her of something too, that sometimes kindness is the most radical act, that a whisper can carry more weight than a scream. And that when we choose love, even when it's hard, even when it's not returned, we create something no one can take away. A moment, a shift, a gift.